And well met. This is Layron with the Advanced Grounds Academy. Today I'm going to be talking about art assets, tokens, that sort of thing. So if you're someone like myself who collects a lot of these, and over time you kind of get this abundance of campaign folders and maps and all kinds of stuff. So what I'm going to do is kind of purge myself from a lot of this extra stuff that I don't need. So I'm going to go to the back end of Fantasy Grounds. So whether you're using a Mac or whatever, if you come up here on the top left corner, you'll see the hamburger menu, and then next to that is a folder menu. So it's on the very top left corner. If you open that up, that'll take you to the back end of Fantasy Grounds. So already I can see some stuff here that I want to archive. So I'm going to leave some of these files here because they're probably useful. But all of these screenshots here, I don't really need those. So I'm going to clean up this folder, and I'm going to make a folder called screenshots just so I have a place to put them. So I'm going to go ahead and do new folder, and then I'm going to do screenshots, and then I'll probably put FG in front of it. That way I'll know what it is. Then I'm going to take all of these images here that I have done either accidentally or intentionally over the year or so, and move all those into that folder so that it's not a big mess. And that's what I'm trying to do, is kind of clean up some of the things that I've added or basically made for Fantasy Grounds during the shows that I've done. Some of them are old campaigns. There's just all kinds of garbage that I've collected over the months. I have a big storage drive where I'm going to take and put all that stuff in a storage drive so I don't have to take up my regular hard drive space. So if you have a M.2 drive, a solid state one, it'd be a lot better to cut down on the amount of resources that you're using. So what I'm going to do is, I don't have any active campaigns or anything important that I'm working on. I'm not working on any campaigns or adventures or anything right now. So I'm actually going to have a clean slate, which is really refreshing. So what I'm going to do is come into the campaigns folder, and I've got over 500 campaign items. That is ridiculous. I mean, I'm kind of embarrassed, to be honest with you. And I don't want to go through every single one of these and try to sort out what's what. I mean, a lot of this stuff I don't need. I would say 99% of it. So what I'm going to do is make a new folder, and I'm just going to call it archive. I'll call it campaign archive. And this kind of segues a little bit into backing up your games. This is in case you have to start over. So I'm going to take all of those and move those into that folder. So now when I load up Fantasy Grounds, I'm not going to have a gazillion campaigns. It was starting to get ridiculous. I had to scroll down this big list. So let's call this a purge. And this is something that maybe some of you can't get away with because you got too many active things going on. I don't have anything important that I can remember where I would need all of those campaigns. I mean, there's maps, artwork, tokens, stuff like that I can go through later and decide what I want to keep, what I want to salvage. But honestly, I'm just trying to clean up this mess that I've made for myself. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of this stuff here and take this campaign archive, and I'll take it and put it into my storage drive later, and then I'll use that to essentially make a backup of all my campaigns. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this out because I don't need it anymore. And I have a storage drive where I'm going to put all this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and I have a Western Digital external drive where I'm going to put all this stuff. It's a Western Digital Black. It's got plenty of room. So I'm just going to paste that over here. And as you can see, there's 32 gigs of information there that I don't need. That's a lot of space for campaigns. That's excessive. So this is just, a cleanup type thing, kind of showing you some of the things you might have to do after several months of playing and such. And it's important to remember that you want to keep the campaigns, obviously, that you're working in. or maybe you have a campaign folder where you're actually building content. But other than that, I don't need all of these. This is just way beyond what's necessary. And then what I'll do is go to my tokens here and all that kind of stuff and clean those up a little bit too. So that is my campaign archives that I'm going to keep there. And this is showing the progress. So it's at 1%. I mean, that's a lot of data. So that's kind of why I'm doing this, because it's a little bit ridiculous. So when I start up Fantasy Grounds again, I shouldn't have 50 gazillion different campaigns. So let me close Fantasy Grounds. And I'm going to open it back up and take a look and see what I got now if I hit load campaign. So there's no campaigns in here. Thank God. And I think while I'm here, I'll go ahead and check for updates, because sometimes the Forge, people will work over the weekend and update their extensions. So if I have anything that needs to be updated, it will get done. And I think it's a good time to do stuff like this. This is kind of like getting into maintenance, managing your assets, tokens, that sort of thing. You got to be kind of careful, because you might have products that are linked to other things. So, you got to watch for that. But other than that, like I said, 99% of that stuff, I don't need it. So I'm going to move that over and actually get rid of that stuff. So that's what this is here. So this file progress is taking all my campaigns that I had over the last 4 or 5 years. I had like over 500 things in there. That's ridiculous. So I'm taking all that, and that's pretty much almost an entire lifetime of using Fantasy Grounds. So I've accumulated 500 different campaigns. So that's crazy. And that's kind of one of the things that slows down your indexing on your computer, and it takes a lot of space for no reason. So this is kind of refreshing, liberating, all those things, because I don't need all that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my other subfolders in Fantasy Grounds up here on the top left. So you're going to come up here, take a look, and you see I cleaned up those screenshots. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out, and then I'll make an archive of it. So if I want to look at those, I'll have a separate folder for them, and they'll be on my storage drive. So I'll go ahead and just paste this here. This shouldn't take as long because it's not a very big folder. But that one was, what, almost 100 megabytes just for screenshots. And there was probably at least, 50 or more. So, I really don't need all this stuff. And that's another thing I'm doing, is kind of starting over, like purging. So I want to have a kind of a clean slate. Once the 2024 rule set drops, I want to kind of have a nice clean slate. So I'm going to go through all the different things I have and remove them, because a lot of that stuff's legacy, and I don't want it interfering with what I've got to do. And I'm not relying on extensions as much anymore, and I don't need 50 million tokens, and I've got way too much stuff. That's basically what this comes down to. So I'm going to back up a lot of this stuff and start over, because I don't really want to carry forward all this stuff that's probably never going to be used. And that's something that you have to decide as you go forward with Fantasy Grounds. Do you really need all this stuff? And that's kind of where I'm at now. I've been meaning to do this for a long time, so this is a good chance to purge. So I'm going to take this and go to, let's see. So I already dealt with that. I don't know what keep was about. Oh, these are characters and stuff and more screenshots. So I will take that keep folder and I'll keep it somewhere else. So go ahead and cut that, and then I'll put that in with the rest of the archives on my storage drive, because that's something I don't need, obviously. It says to keep it, but I don't need to keep it there. So that was probably, what, another 300 megabytes or so almost a gig. So this is just stuff that I've accumulated over the months and the year. So I don't really need all this stuff anymore. So here's we'll talk about another thing I've done, which is going to take the assets and convert them into WebP, which makes it a lot smaller. And that's the important thing to remember with storage, is that some of us only have like 1 terabyte or less, and when you have a bunch of crap on your hard drive, especially for Fantasy Grounds, it's usually not worth it. So all of these extensions, I'm not sure if I'm going to mess with those right now, but I don't need most of these. And as a matter of fact, let me go to the date modified. So anything like 2023, if there is any, nope, none of that. Okay, so I'll just leave these for now, but I'll have to sort through them and figure out which ones I actually need and which ones are outdated. But most of these are not anything big, or they don't hurt anything. Let's see. So simple. There's the Baron extension, Baron theme remastered. So these are just things that I probably won't use very often, and if I do use them, then it would be I'll just get it when I need it. So these are just kind of maybe not. I don't want to mess those too much because I'm not sure. I don't remember what half of them do. Okay, this images folder is a big, huge problem for me. This has the tokens, spell tokens, maps, all kinds of stuff. So I want to take all this stuff out of here, except for we'll keep the FGC logos, miscellaneous, random assets. I want to keep the branding for Smiteworks, spell tokens, Tom Cardo stuff. So I'm going to take all this stuff and oceanic maps. So take all this stuff, cut it, and move it out. So this is kind of like a big backup thing, and I'm hoping to encourage some of you to go back and clean up and maybe get some more hard drive space, or maybe even just some stuff that you might want to get rid of. So Fantasy Grounds, backups, I'll say art, assets, stuff like that. This stuff I probably won't need it again. So, and this has probably, there's another 25. Is that 25 gigs? Yeah, I don't know how big it is, but that other one I first started with is only at 22%. So that's a really big purge. So we're getting rid of some serious stuff here, and it's just things I probably won't use. And I have duplicates and all kinds of stuff. So that's what this is all about, is backing stuff up, moving stuff out. So we have some portraits here, and I don't know if I'm going to get rid of those, but there again, this could probably be cleaned up too. But I'll leave that for now, because I think I'll still use some of those, because I don't always like the ones that are from Fantasy Grounds. And then here's a tokens one. Oh my god. So this is another thing that I want to kind of clean this up. So I'm going to take all this stuff here, and I'm going to cut, and then I'm going to go to another folder, the backup folder, and let's see. So there's the backup assets. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is make a new subfolder, and I'm going to call this tokens. Okay. New folder. What the heck's it doing? Whatever. I'll just say, well, I want to actually backups. Nope. New folder. There we go. And I'm going to call this tokens. And I have a lot of really good top-down ones, but I haven't been using them. I really haven't. And it's a sad thing. I've spent all that money and time and resources on it, and I don't use it. That thing is over 7 gigs of tokens. So this is kind of stuff that slows things down and takes up room for no reason at all. And I'm going to feel so good after, or at least pretty good after all this stuff is done. And when you make big changes like this, you have to be careful that stuff isn't linked to other things, and you want to go into your campaign and refresh if you've made any file changes or directory changes. And if you have stuff linked together in your campaign, you might break those links. So you got to be careful what you're moving, what you rename, those sort of things, because it can break. It will actually break. So you got to be careful with that. Even if you go in and refresh it and update it, it won't necessarily reconnect the links that you've made from an image to a campaign record. So you have to be careful with that. Another thing is if you change the format or the name of it, or you move it to a different directory. So all those things impact the structure of your campaign. So you got to be careful with that. Make sure you leave that stuff if you know what it is. And I think what I'm going to be doing now is just kind of going through, and so this is image folder is kind of, it's going to go away. There's only going to be a couple folders now. And then my portraits, I kind of left that, but I think what I'm going to start over on that too. So I'm going to take all this stuff and I'll go ahead and cut, or yeah, do I need to cut this? Nah. Trying to think, how do I want to do this? Solo play portraits. You probably don't even need most of these. So the pack files, I'll leave those. That these custom ones, I'll probably just cut those and I'll make another folder on my storage drive and take those out. So this is a big purge. This is like, you know, taking everything you don't need and moving it. And in this case, it's going to be used, you know, to clean this mess that I've made over the years and get rid of this. So this is something that you should do at least once a year, if not more. So this won't take as long as I'm going through right now, because if you do it as you go instead of waiting until you get to a big mess like mine. So I'm going to have a new folder, and we'll call this portraits. And since the token thing has changed and the portrait requirements are a little different, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and move that stuff out of there because it's just another group of files that I probably never use or barely ever see it. So it can't be moved to the new location. Okay, skip it. I don't care. Don't move it then. All right, so this is tokens to tokens, images to FG backup art assets. So as you can see, there's a ton. This is 5 gigs remaining, and this one has about 1.5 gigs. So, I mean, this is a lot of data. So kind of, you know, one of those things where you have to decide, you know, what's important to you. And my sanity is getting insane with this stuff, so I got to do something about it. So that's what I'm doing right now. So let's take a look at what else can we get rid of. Let's see. So this is all my tokens that I've collected over the years. I mean, these are stuff I purchased, stuff I've made, stuff I've bought from third party, you know, all over the place. So I just want to move them over. Okay, so going back to the main master folder for SmiteWorks. So I moved the portraits, all the tokens, all that stuff. So now I'm going to go into modules. This is going to kick my butt here. I don't need all this stuff, to be honest with you. I mean, there's some really good stuff in here, but since everything's kind of changing and evolving, I don't know what stuff is going to be compatible or even used. So I'm going to take everything out of here. This is all my third-party modules, everything. So I want to go Control A. Wow, it's not even letting me do it. There's too much stuff going on right now. That's probably why. So what I'm going to do is do it manually. And then I will cut those out and go back to here and make a new folder. And this will be, I'll say 2019 to 2024 modules for Fantasy Grounds. So that way I'll know what that was, and if I need to find something, I can go back there. And this is also good, like if you have to start completely over, like if you get a new computer or a whole new hard drive or whatever, this is a good thing to do because this will back up everything. So I backed up the tokens, modules, campaigns. I haven't messed with extensions because I got to go through and I want to disable those in Fantasy Grounds on the Forge and not just delete them and then see what I got left and then delete those. So I'm going to do that more in steps. And then, you know, all the tokens, art, all that stuff I'm getting rid of all that stuff. And then what I'll do is you want it, when you make big changes like this, you want to close Fantasy Grounds and then reopen it. That way you're not, it doesn't confuse it, and it kind of re-indexes what you got going on. So basically, purge, big purge. And really, what I want to do is show you something I'm working on while all those files are transferring. So I invested in the Game Tile Warehouse. I got the licensing and everything for tokens. And these are not player tokens necessarily. These are assets that you use for maps. So when I come in here, like here's some doors. And there's all kinds of doors here. And these are the ones that Chris used for his Kickstarters and all the different stuff he used for his Meanders maps. So what I did is all these files, I converted them to WebP format instead of leaving them as PNG. So this one, let's see what this one is. Yeah, so that's a WebP file. That's only 20 kilobytes. When I first started, before I did this whole folder was 2 gigs. It was like 5,000 assets. It was 2 gigs. Now it's only a quarter of a gig. It's like 218 megabytes. That's quite a difference. So what I'm going to do is cut this, and then I'll go into Fantasy Grounds, into the back end of it again. And right now I'm still transferring out stuff, so I can't do much with it anyway. So I'll go ahead and restart Fantasy Grounds and then go back to the back end. And for images that you want to use for your maps, those go in the images folder. And what I'm going to do is make just paste it here, and that will bring over all these new assets. So those are third-party assets that I'll be able to use with the map tools and stuff in Fantasy Grounds. There's enough there where I probably don't need a whole lot more. I mean, this is like several folders worth of things. Like here's some fire. There's that. And then I think there's even some, was it breath weapons or something like that? There's all kinds of, there's some desks. And they're all kind of fantasy, medieval, most of it. There's a little bit of sci-fi in here. So like here's some food dishes. So there's plenty of stuff to work, plenty of meat, no pun intended, but plenty of stuff to work from in this particular asset folder. So that's kind of another reason I'm doing this. And now I want to go through the SmiteWorks branded images and combine all those together, because I don't need 2 folders that say the same thing. So that's SmiteWorks. Yeah, so this is basically the same stuff. So I want to combine those together and make sure that those are all cleaned up. Yeah, so these are just kind of like for social media advertising. And then this thing here, there's no more in there, so I'll get rid of that. And then I have our FGC logos, and for the longest time I haven't done anything with this, but I'll take these 2 things and I'm going to make them smaller, and then I'm also going to turn those into WebP. So that's one of the other things I'm doing, is converting the file formats. So first things first is I'm going to open this up in GIMP, and then I'm just going to rename the file, shrink it down a little bit, because when I open it up in Fantasy Grounds as a background image, it's way too big. So I'm going to go ahead and hit File. Let's see. How do we layer? I'm just going to actually just convert it for now. So File, Export As. And then what you can do is change the designated file name. So this will be WebP. And then we'll hit Export. And then we're going to go to 75% and just leave everything else and hit Export. So that'll cut down the file size. So right now it's like a, almost 1 megabyte. It's probably going to be like a quarter of that size now. And that's another thing I'm doing, is trying to conserve file, sizes, the hard drive space, and that sort of thing. So we'll go to GIMP. Again, same thing. So I want to take this and go ahead and shrink it, make it a little bit smaller. So Export As, and then I'm going to call this something else, because this is really, I don't like the name. It's too long. That's another thing, is when you have file names for Fantasy Grounds, there is a limit. So you got to be careful with that, because the limitations will definitely creep up on you as far as the length of a name or title. So you want to be careful with that, and also make sure that you rename these aptly. See, I don't even like how I had this. Just renaming the files and cleaning them up, and then I'm going to hit export, and then it's at 75%. That's what I wanted, and I'll go ahead and clean that up. So this is just file maintenance, really. And I wanted to show the process because it has to be done occasionally, especially if you've been playing a long time. I know there's quite a few of you out there that need to do this. So take it from me, it'll save you a lot of headache down the road, and you're backing up your file. So are you sure you want to move this file without its properties? Yes, I am absolutely sure. So this is just some stuff that you may want to do, and then let's go ahead and refresh this. What is this? Okay, that's PNG files. Okay, where's the refresh? Show more options. There we go. Okay, so I want to get rid of the PNG files. So this one was almost 1 meg, and when it's converted, it's like 133 kilobytes as opposed to 848 kilobytes. That's like, 2-3 times less than it was before. So I want to get rid of this file and this file. Make sure it's the right one. Yeah. So got rid of stuff we don't need. And this one here is WebP. Okay, so the file size on that dimensions is about 1100 by 776, kind of an odd shape. This one is 1920 by 1080. I'm going to shrink those down a little bit so that way they fit on the screen better. So I'll just open this up with a standard photo editor, nothing fancy. I don't need to reinvent the wheel here. And then right click, I should resize. And we're going to go with pixels. So this one, 1200. And I'll leave the quality of that. And why is it? Oh, it's going to make it into a JPEG. No thanks. Nope, that's undoing what I just did. So I'll open this up with something a little bit better. So Corel. Yeah, I forgot that the Windows thing doesn't support WebP, not yet anyways. So I'll just use a bona fide photo editor to do it. It's probably better off anyways. So file, and I want to change the size. So image, resize, and let's go with 1200 by whatever. Leave that height. And go ahead and hit that, and then I want to save it. Do I want to save it? No, I'm going to save it as, and then we'll say resized. That way I'll know which is which. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so close that, and then I want to bring over the other logo that I use occasionally and do the same thing. So take this and resize it and put it in a different format. So export, we're going to go with, nope, I wanted to resize. So image, resize. Yeah, so this one was already kind of a good size, so I'm just going to go with 1000 and do it that way. There we go. File, save as, and then we're just going to underscore resized. There we go. So I'll save that. Yep. All right. So that is basically just optimizing your files in your library. That's really all I'm doing right now. So we want to go to show more options. We're going to refresh. And now what I'm going to do is leave the resized ones, and I'll cut these things out and put those over into the, these are still running. That's how much stuff I had, which is absolutely ridiculous. So let's go to this, and we'll go to keep, and we'll put those in there. So these are the original logos that I'm trying to preserve them, basically. And that's that. And let me refresh this, see if it's still, if they're still in there or not. Oh, there we go. So this is just something you're going to have to do occasionally. I mean, it depends. Mr. Rudd, I don't know what you were trying to say, but purging this library here of all this garbage. I mean, we've got like a gazillion modules from the DM's Guild I probably won't use anymore. And I've got some older modules that were created by me that I probably won't use again. There's just so much crap I've accumulated over the years. And I did this through backup. So whenever I installed Fantasy Grounds, I brought over a lot of that stuff. But now that things have changed quite a bit, and the asset requirements are different, the rule sets are different. I mean, just everything's changed. So it's a good time to purge, and that's kind of what I'm doing right now, is just purging the crap I don't need and getting rid of all the stuff that I've accumulated over the months. So I'm making backups. You can see this live right now. Make backups when you can, and take the afternoon and do it. Don't wait too long, because you never know when tragedy is going to strike. I've had hard drives fail. I've had computers blow up. All kinds of stuff. So when you got to start over and you don't have anything there to work with, that sucks. Because especially if you have ongoing campaigns, if you're getting paid to run games and stuff, you really should be on top of this. Be running games and stuff. I just make new sessions every time I want to do a show, and that's not necessarily a good way to do that. I only do that because I always want to show the beginning steps, setting things up, that sort of thing. And I think what I end up doing is just making a big mess. And I've got like probably over 100 campaigns that are nothing but just the start and maybe a few modules enabled, that sort of thing. So we'll see. And I think this will be a lot zippier when I actually open this up. So when I go to load Fantasy Grounds or update it, I don't think I'm going to get that lag that I've been getting, because it has to index all of those files. And that's really the sort of thing that slows down your game or Fantasy Grounds, is you just got way too much stuff going on. And when it has to index all that stuff, it's kind of hard on it, especially when it's massive. It's just a small amount, probably not a big deal. But as you can see here, I've only moved half of this folder, and it's already at 16 gigs left. So there was like over 30 gigs of information that I don't need. So that's really a big, huge change for me. And now if I go to load campaign, all that's here is that tutorial campaign. Boy, that's beautiful. I like it. Pristine, just updated, moving stuff around. When it's done moving that folder out of here, I'm going to restart Fantasy Grounds and start a new session. And that should be I'm going to call it like presentation. Like I'll make a new, I can probably do that now. It's probably not going to hurt anything. So create campaign. I'll pick 5e rule set, and I'll just say 5e underscore Fantasy Grounds. We'll say tutorials or something like that. And that way I'll use this most of the time instead of creating a whole new folder every time I set up. So this will be, I'll say basic tutorials, because I'll have one for maps, I'll have one for character creation, all those different things. So then I'm going to set up my parameters. So I don't need I don't need anything there. And then I'll go ahead and hit start. So this is just a starting point for me. So when I go back into Fantasy Grounds and I want to get going on something and I don't want to have time to set it all back up, I'm going to do this. And when the new books drop Tuesday, I'll get all those loaded and start working on a new character creation series. I haven't done those in a long time, so I'm looking forward to that. It's going to build like just the basic classes, like maybe 4 different classes of different videos, and kind of give people an idea of some of the changes and some of the differences. And I'm not going to focus on that too much, but so this is the campaign setup. Show unload. No, I don't want that. Hit next. Not going to load anything because like I said, I'm going to use the other books. I will, however, lay out my screen. So that's something I always do. So I'm going to go ahead and hit options. And one of the things I put a vote for this, by the way. Hey, Mr. Red, how's it going? I don't know why it moderated your thing. Maybe yeah, it probably was. Exactly. So I will change the color of my pointer thing, and then I'm going to turn on the dice tower, and I think that's about all I need to do. But I really wish that this kind of stuff, yeah, I'm just noticing that Phoenix Grounds hit 20 years this year. Yeah, it did. Yep, it's been around for a bit. And I've got like 5 years of stuff that I'm archiving. What do you think the biggest features added since you've been using it? Honestly, this I'm about to show you. So in the campaign options, this will allow you to preserve your Windows locations, which used to be an extension. So in here, the desktop restore Windows on start, we turn that on. When next time you come back, all the windows will be where you parked them. So I always do this to my desktop. I'm always constantly like moving stuff around and arranging. So when I come back, these will be in the exact spot that I had them. And if I had anything open, it will, yeah, it hasn't been a pain. But that was an extension. They incorporated that. So that's a kind of a cool thing. And one of the things I wish would happen is, and I put this on the, if you guys are watching, I put a request to have these settings carry over to another campaign. So if there's a way that you can save a file or something and then load that up, and then that way it will change everything for you, including your campaign options, the modules that you load, all that stuff. I want them to expand this restore on start. That's a nice thing, but I want them to also create like an INI file or some kind of thing that loads everything that you've done before. So I don't have to go through all this every time I start a new campaign. So I'm going to go ahead and hit finish, because I want all this stuff just like this every time, so I don't have to redo this. And let's go. And then I usually put the combat tracker right here. And I just have a kind of a methodology for doing this. And then when I come back to this should all be where I left it. And now my dice settings, it was another thing I would like them to change. I don't want to always have to start off with the default black dice set. I want to set it up the way I have it. And then when I leave and come back and I have to do a whole new campaign, I don't want to have to go through all this again. So that's kind of the vote. I hope you guys will find that on the Idea Informer. So let me go. So I'm going to change the default dice here. I'm going to go with some of the theme colors from the background. So the dice is another thing that was kind of new that's been added. They've added more dice varieties. They're no longer, the dice are not linked to your pointer color anymore. They're separate. And they have a lot more options like this fire set. But I'm going to go into the default here and change the body. I'm going to go with this gold color. That's actually part of the theme. And then I'm going to go with the text is going to be this kind of greenish color that they have here. So that's this stuff here. And then I'm going to have it be a fancier pattern. So that's the base. Let's go with this. Yeah, there we go. So that's good. See, I kind of wish, like, if I started a whole new campaign, that I could get everything to load up. Yeah, global versus local. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I hope for. I put in a request for it. I don't know if it's doable, but it's something that if you use Fantasy Grounds a lot and you're making several campaigns, it probably doesn't cater to enough people to warrant. But the other thing that was incorporated, I think, is useful, but I don't know if anyone uses it that much, is in the campaign options, you have the ability to do the message of the day. So this is a nice handy thing. So when your players join the table, this will pop up when they claim their characters. So this would be something that you would want for a campaign. Let's say you send them directions for the next session when they log in, or you can share maps and link them in here for stuff they need to study before the game starts, or you can just use it like a journal thing where you have like a copy and paste your journal from here to there, or whatever you need it for. This was also an extension that was incorporated, so that's kind of a nice change. I think that was a nice touch, but I don't think it was that popular as I'd hoped. Death markers is kind of cool. This doesn't work exactly how I thought they would, but you do have the option to make your own. Like you can have tombstones, or if you have your own assets, you can change the color. So when NPCs die, they leave behind a little graphic like a blood splatter or a tombstone or whatever. But I was hoping that it would show the icon as being swapped out with the actual status, but it leaves behind a stain basically, and then you have to clear it if you want to afterwards. So it works a little differently than I'd hoped, but that's kind of cool, I guess. I want to say the performance has improved since they've been optimizing it over the years. So the first year was really rough. I mean, this thing was a beast, but they've really optimized the memory and the usage of assets to where it's a little bit more manageable. It still has some problems, but it's way better than it used to be. I think the map tools is probably the biggest departure that I can think of. Map tools is something that some people use it, some people don't. They don't find it intuitive, or they use a third-party program, make their own maps and line of sight, and then they can import it. But one of the things I like about this is I have a lot of assets that I've purchased through SmiteWorks, and there's plenty of stuff for me to use there. I don't even need my third-party stuff really, but a lot of that third-party stuff is already built, so that's why I use it. But I mean, it's pretty impressive what you can do now with the map tools. It used to really suck. Like, it was really janky and there was a lot of problems with it, but they've really cleaned that up quite a bit, and it can be useful once you learn how to use it. So the assets have increased. So if you have the the image catalog, their art packs, that's helpful sometimes if you use them. Let's see. So I want to go to campaign and then let's go to images, and you can start a new image here, and then you can unlock it and start editing. So what we're going to do is just add a new item, which is a blank. And then from here, you can start doing whatever you want. So usually I start with a grid if it's going to be a map. So I'll go ahead and enable that. And then maybe change the color to yellow. And it won't really show anything until you put something on here. So then if you you can add layers. So if you go to assets, you can go into your tiles, and if you search for FG space, whatever you want. So let's go with dungeon. Let's see what this does. Okay, so these are the dungeon assets. So you have art packs, tiles, brushes, decorations, and floors. So let's take a look at the floors. So here's some generic dungeon floor tiles. So you can kind of use this to get started. So I'm going to go into the layers option because I want to put this in as a layer, and then bring that over. And that's a 6x6 square. So that's why I do that, so I can kind of get an idea of what size it's going to be. So 6x6, and then I'm going to change this thing here. That's at 100 by 100, so that's fine. And I'll go ahead and click this, and it should, oops, I didn't do it right. There we go. Go back to stamp and then click, and there you go. So now the actual, this will actually show. And then I think I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So you can take this and make duplicates, or you can just keep clicking, in time with this. So if I click here, it stamps another. So as you can see, I didn't stamp it, exactly where I wanted it, but you can come back later and select the layer and just move it over. No, I just didn't want the overlap. So that, this alone is becoming a thing, right? And then what you can do is take this, a subfolder here, and I've just made a new folder, and we'll call this floor tiles, just so I have a spot for it. Floor tiles. And I want to make sure that I put all those in there. And this way you don't got 50 million assets there. So that's all for the floor tiles. And then I added my own assets here. So if I go to images and then I use this folder refresh, that will refresh, all the stuff I've added. And then if I go to data and I go to this GTW thing, this is all the things that I added earlier, which were like assets like, like grates and tents and whatever else. So there's a wagon cart, vases, treasure chest. Let's go with some tables. Let's take a look at the tables. Oh yeah, plethora of tables here. So there again, we could take this and decide which one. So I want to go with this kind of octagonal one here. I like this one. So take that, drag it over to the tiles. And this one's like almost 2 squares, so that should work out. There we go. So there's one there. And let's do another one over here. Maybe we'll make this a bar. But I'm just kind of doing this while the files are transferring over. So kind of killing some time here. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, so let me move that one over into the corner a little bit more. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Maybe one more. So click on stamp again and whammo. And then take this and bring this up there. I'll bring that up there. Trying to leave a little bit of room over here for the bar. Got to have that. I want to see if there is a bar graphic or asset here. So these are all tables. I suppose I could take the stone table and move it over here, but let me see if there is a... No. Let me search this and see. Bar. Barrels. Yeah, I think I'll have to take tables and combine it. Not a big deal, but before, are you sure? I'll say yes. I'm almost done transferring, which is nice. Okay, so that is a barrel. So maybe since I'm here already, I'll use some of these barrels. So I like it. So I'll take some of these barrels and put one in a corner or something. People can sit on it, whatever. So I'll take this barrel here, drag and drop it into the assets thing here. This is 4 by, that's a really big barrel. So what I'm going to do is change it to 1 because I don't want it to be scaled that large. And maybe put it over here. Yeah, see, that's more like it. Okay, so that's that. It's kind of a small barrel. Maybe 1.5 would be better. So let me click on it, hit delete, and go back to stamp. And then let's go to 1.5. Let's see what that looks like. That should look a little bit scaled better. Yeah, it's kind of big. So no, I don't like that. So I will go with... let's go 1.25, 1.2. Should do it. There we go. Yeah, it looks better. So, scaling is something that you'll have to get used to. And then, like I said, if I wanted to make a bar, I can just go back to this and go back to the tables and just combine those to make a bar. Let's see, tables. There's this like stone one. I think there's a long wooden one I can probably use. Yeah, so this stone one's probably going to be the best bet because of the shape of it. There's some marble here. Here's a table that's kind of just rectangular, so maybe I can use that for a bar. Here's one that's more of a furniture style, like more worked. Is there anything else that I haven't seen? Oh yeah, here we go. Here's a longer table right here. Perfect. So I'll take that and drag it. Oh, here we go. Tavern bench. Perfect. So take that. Let's see what this looks like. Oh yeah, and it's even got barrels, cups, food. Perfect. So take that, drag and drop it up there. Or what's this one look like? That one's more clean. That looks more like an apothecary thing. So I'll take this, drag and drop it up here. This is 11 by 3. That's a little big. So what I will do is maybe go with 8. Yeah, 8 by 2. Let's see what this looks like when I... So right now it's kind of facing the wrong way. So I want to take this and rotate it, and then I want to flip it. Yeah, I think that's close enough. Let's see what this looks like. Yep, just like that. I like it. So we'll go with that, zoom to fit. Yeah, so that's basically the bar. And I could flip this around. So let me go back to click on this. Oops, I didn't want that. Wanted to go back into here. Click on the asset itself. Make sure I have this selected here. And then, oops, wrong one. So here, oh, I see. I'm not doing the right thing here. There we go. All right, so how do I want to flip that around? Nope, not like that. I think it was this one. Yeah, there we go. So that's, flipping that around to make that. I just got, is this a custom asset manager or is this stock? Okay, so the map tools themselves will allow you to manipulate Fantasy Grounds content. As far as the asset manager goes, yes, that's part of the rule set, but in regards to what you have access to, you can either import the stuff yourself or you can subscribe to the Fantasy Grounds art pack. So I have both. The stuff I'm using right now is a art pack that I purchased that I added myself. And it was a big PNG file folder. It was like 2 gigs worth of assets, but I actually converted it to WebP, and I bought it all as a big collection, or I invested in a Kickstarter. And that way it's not too big on my hard drive, and I have plenty of assets to work with. And there's ones that come with the art packs too. So Fantasy Grounds itself has their own assets, but then you can bring in your own. So you put those in your images file, and whenever you add assets to Fantasy Grounds, you want to hit this refresh folders, and then they'll start whatever you add will start showing up in here. In your images, you go to images, and then whatever folders you make. So in this case, this is in my upper directory. I call this GTW token assets, and then these are all subfolders. Like there's one that has horses in it, saddles, all kinds of stuff. So this is something that I purchased or invested in earlier, but this isn't stock, the stuff I'm using now, but this tile in the background is. So it's kind of a mix and match depending on what exactly you're using. And yeah, so the map tools allows you to kind of design your own. So I wanted to get some walls. So I want to take this bench out of the floor. Actually, I'll leave all that there because that's kind of we'll say instead of floor tiles, what we'll call this is tavern assets. There we go. That makes more sense. And then what I'm going to do is take one of the tables. I don't care which one. It's this one, I guess. And what I want to do is I'm going to take and make a duplicate. So down here, there's a duplicate layer. And then what I'll do is take that and, oops, what happened? That was weird. Oh, it's underneath the ground. That's why. Okay, so it was underneath. So the stone floor is on the very bottom layer. So I just needed to move it up a layer. And what I'm going to do with this is, since I have it selected, I'm going to take the tint and recolor it to where it's like wholly black. Change the transparency a little bit so it's just kind of like a shadow. And then I'll use this to put underneath the tables to kind of give it that shadowy look. And so I'll just take something like this and I'll make several of these. But in this case, what I'm going to do is hold down the shift key or the alt key. Is that right? Alt? No, it's shift, I believe. I basically turn off the snap to grid. So that way I can kind of feather it in there myself, but I kind of need the grid to make it snap relative to the tables and even succession here. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that and move it over here. I wish it would stop going to the very bottom. Yeah, because it's starting to, I see what it's doing. Anyway, so just keep doing that. Let's see, duplicate, bring it over, duplicate, bring it over, and then I got to bring this up because it's underneath the floor. And see, you put it underneath the table to kind of give it that shadowy look. So we can take those and put all the shadows like just above the floor tiles. Like that. Only thing is now I got several of them. I don't know which is which. So there's the bench. There's this. There we go. So this one, I want to bring this down. All right. So this is just kind of a way to use the assets, and then maybe I'll do one more. So again, copy of that layer, move it, put it in place, and then move it above the floor tiles. And what's kind of neat about this is, didn't you make an asset manager for all the? I did make not really a manager, but it was a book for, or like a kind of like a catalog, and I did that about a year ago, and I kind of gave up on it because it was kind of a ongoing thing. Like every time they released a new art set, I'd have to update it and add it, and I just got tired of the maintenance on it, so I kind of gave it up. But it has probably over half of the assets. It's just a catalog that tells you what's in what folders, and it has like a screenshot of the assets. And that's another thing I voted on, or set up a thing, is I want SmiteWorks to start being more accountable for the art packs and provide a thumbnail that shows all the little assets. So kind of like my folder here, I want to see a graphic of all the assets. So if I have, like, let's say this, if this art pack has all these in there, I want a snapshot or a screenshot of those, so I know what the hell's in each one of those packs, because the packs themselves have like brushes, they have backgrounds, they're all different, and there's no way to know what you have unless you go through every single one of those folders, which makes it kind of cumbersome. At least with a thumbnail view, you can click on one thumbnail and say, oh, okay, this pack has this, then you'll know what to look for. So when you do your search down here, you go like Fantasy Grounds space whatever it is, the asset you're looking for. So it'd be nice if they had this in this format on the store, but also inside of the adventure. So when you download that art pack, there should be a master folder, and then in the master folder is a WebP thumbnail shot of all the assets that's in there. And I think that makes it easier, so you kind of have an idea what you're looking for. Because as it is right now, I don't know what's in every pack. Yeah, I don't know why they're not doing it. I brought this up a couple times over the last couple of years. I realize it's a lot of work. They got to put, they got Josh pretty busy. But if you do it as you go, it's not as hard to catalog these. And I think that it's an important thing because less people use the assets if they don't know what they have. So that's the other thing behind it. But yeah, I think that having an idea of what you're buying and what you're using and what's in the actual sets is really helpful. But if you get used to the sets, I mean, you get intimately familiar with them, you'll know. But until then, though, you're not gonna really understand what you get. But the art subscriptions, if I go back to data, actually go back to this home thing, and then make sure I'm in images, and then do Fantasy Grounds space, and then hit enter. This is all the packs. But there's really no way to know what's in them unless I go to each one of these and open it up, and then there's subfolders, and a lot of them don't even have this. So it'd be nice if I had a screenshot in the master folder that showed what's in each one of these folders as an image. So then if it was like a preview image, I'd look at the preview and say, oh, okay, so these are the ones I need to look for. But as it is, now you got to go through every single folder and try to figure out what's what. And I think that's too much of a burden for a lot of people. They don't have time for that. So that's why I brought that up. But that's another thing I put up on the suggestion thing is, if you want us to use this, then make it more accessible. So yes, to answer your question, I did make a custom asset manager, but it's not really a manager. It was more or less a way to know what's in each art pack. And I did that because I couldn't figure out what was in what pack without having to go through every single folder. So that's kind of where I was at the time, but I'm kind of giving up on it. So there's this barrel. So I'm going to make a copy of it, move it out, and then, oops, where did it go? Oh, it's down here. All right, so there's that, and then move it, and now change that to black, and then make it transparent. Hit OK, and then move that into place. Something like that. Yeah, I'm going to have to take the snap to grid off. There was, is it control? There was something that, yeah, control. If you hold control, there we go. So you could do the same thing with the bar, like add a shadow underneath it. There's also brushes too. Searchable descriptor tags would be useful as well, letting you search wood or yeah. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know how the tagging system would work. It'd have to be on the back end, I imagine. But I agree with you. I mean, something to make it a little bit more searchable, because right now, when you're searching for an asset, you don't know what, like if you say wood, that's going to give you everything that's tagged with wood. And I don't know if that's what you want. If you want wood chair, maybe, I don't know. They'd have to tag it a certain, like there'd be a naming convention. They did it that way, it would be a little easier, because right now you got stone underscore floor, but and then a number next to it. I mean, that's really tough to figure out what that is without looking at it. So I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I know it sucks right now for making projects like this. If I go to images, let me go to assets, and I'm going to go back to my game tile warehouse thing, because I know that's organized because I did it myself. So there's a game tile warehouse. Let's go with walls. So does he have walls? I mean, what is it called? Let's see, where is it? Wall. Nope. It says too short. Siege engine, shelves. We can put a shelf in there. Maybe there isn't walls in this set. Yeah, so this isn't this is just stuff that you put in. So I could go to Fantasy Grounds or the Fantasy Grounds thing and use their walls. So if I go back to the home thing and go to Fantasy Grounds or Fantasy Grounds Interior, I guess I think that's what they called it. So there's Haunted, yeah, Interior Map Pack Basement. That's probably about as close as I'm going to get. So these are probably brushes. I don't need that. I just need a wall. So go. So decorations, floors, walls. Here we go. Here's the walls. Yeah, so I don't know. Wall, wooden exterior. This is a brush. So you want to brush that on. Let me see if I can. I'm not very good with the brush, but I'll try. So this is a brush pack. Place it on here. And this is where I kind of get, where I don't like is when you end up, like it ends up in the wrong, I don't know how to explain it, but I mean, it kind of snaps the grid, but I never like the brush because it just feels weird, like kind of goofy. And if you don't place this right, you kind of get this thing here, this weird overlap. And I know there's ways to take that out, but anyway, so there's the walls, and then you can layer a door over the top of it. So let me see if I can find one of Chris's doors. Let's see, assets, go to, okay, he's got his own doors here. Maybe I can find a matching door. Here we go. There's a wooden wall. Here's a door. Yeah, so go, actually I wanna, that's a double one. Okay, so this is 4 length by 1, so probably 2. Let's see what that looks like. So maybe I'll put the door down here where they come in. Actually, that looks kind of small. Let's go at 2.5. Yeah, that's better. Something like that. Oops. Control Z. Oh, that's because I'm in the brushes. That's why. Okay. So assets, wood wall, interior door. That and okay, so 4 by 1. So that's a little big. So 2 by half, I guess. Okay. Now we're in business, so that looks pretty good. And you can scale this up too. Like if you don't like it, you can hit Control, make sure you have it selected, the asset, and you can actually, scale that up. I think it's a plus. I don't remember what the shortcut key is, but you can scale it up. So that is that. So maybe I'll go to 2.5. Oops, I gotta make sure. Yeah, there we go. 3. Yep, there we go. So that looks better with it like that. Or you can take the corner and drag it if you want. You can also cut this out, like if you want this more clean. And then to make it blend in a little better, you can take that and, this is still too big. So 3.1. There we go. And then what you do is kind of fade something in and out if you want. But I don't like the way this ends up here. Because this looks okay, these broken areas, but I don't like the way this looks pretty good right here, but when you end it, the paintbrush, it's got this weird corner and you should probably fill it. You have that issue with the Emerald Spire map pack. On the second floor, it's meant to be dark, 5-foot view, but how the line of sight is set to the walls, it means you can't see the way when light is set to 5 feet. Oh yeah, I can see that. That's kind of weird. I would do something different. I don't know. Maybe put your own lights in there. I have no idea. But interior buildings can be tricky because you got outdoor ambient light and then you got, your indoor stuff. But I know what you mean. The line of sight, yeah, so you can't see the way. Yeah, because it's only 5 feet. Yeah, I'd make it wider because that's not enough room. You get kind of choked to walk around. I don't know if you have that option, but I know what you mean. You could back off the line of sight. So, for instance, if you have an occluder, let's go to, just for an example, I'll just put an occluder up here. So I'm just going to go with a line, and I'm going to go down this center line right here. Oops. I don't know what the hell I did, but what the hell? Yeah, I don't know what it's doing here. This is annoying. Okay. That was weird. It just kind of all of a sudden tweaked out. All right, so I'm going to selection tool, line of sight, going to the wall tool. Why is it doing that? Why does it do this? This is so weird. I don't understand it at all, why it's doing that. That is weird. Now it's not, yeah, I don't know what's doing, but, oh, this is a painting? Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not really familiar or well versed in painting, but for some reason, it's goofing up. So let me lock it. Maybe that'll help. Okay, so all I want to do is add some line of sight without that goofiness. Yeah, I click on the map and it just does that. And it's not drawing the line like I want it to. How weird. Okay, anyway, so it's fixed now, but I don't know why it changes when I... Okay, so this thing right here, this is your line of sight. Oh yeah, I know what you mean. You can't see the walls. Well, this is one of the things you can do. So what that means, more than likely, is that whoever drew the line of sight did not... They either went too close to the edge, which isn't necessary. You can draw it right through the edge here. And if you need to see the walls, there's a bleed through, this peek through right here, changes the distance. So change that peek through to like 0.1 or something. Let me see if I can demonstrate this. So let me change this though, because that's something that you can actually fix fairly easy, I think. So rectangle, wall tool. So I'm going to draw that out, left click and drag and drop it right in about here. Okay, so this isn't bad. This isn't right up to the line. So whoever did the line of sight probably drew it in here as opposed to, yeah, otherwise, yeah. Yeah. So anyways, older maps, they did that, right? They didn't know back then when they were doing it. So what you can do now is, let me see if I can emulate this. So if I go to play and I turn on line of sight, okay, so I'll just disable the player view right now. And what you could do with that is you can change the preview, like the peek through. So just back it off. Go to line of sight and just take this preview and go to like 0.1 or 0.2. And what it does is it'll give you a little bit more visibility of the walls. And that way, but it depends on, how it's set up. But at least for this, I could set the peek through and, go to 0.2 or whatever. And then it'll allow for more vision to peek through this line. So if that's a hard line here for the line of sight, it'll give you a couple pixels back so you can look at that. So that's a way that you might be able to fix that issue, at least to see some of the walls. They had to do that for narrow places just like that. So you have a narrow corridor and it's got line of sight in there, you can't see nothing. So basically you can change the peek through so you can see some of the walls. So the peek through will help with that. That's what that's for. It's peer through amount. So 0.1 or 0.2 should do it. Yeah, that's something that this is kind of a new. Yeah, it is a very niche issue, but it's obviously it comes up enough where they had to build a tool for it. So that's something you could look at. I don't remember if you have to click on the line, on the actual line of sight line, and then do it, or if it just does it globally. If it does it globally, you're in business. If you have to do it for every line or every wall, that would kind of suck. But I think just doing that hallway would be helpful if that's all you had to do, because that's annoying. So, anyways, I got all my transferring done, and as you can see, if I go to my assets, I cleaned that up because I used to have like a gazillion folders. Now I just have whatever comes with the modules and the adventures, and then any map packs that I purchased on the store, plus the art subscription. So there's lots of different things you got going on here. So you have your own personal assets, and then you have Smiteworks stuff that's kind of, pulled into when you update. And then you have modules that have specific sets in them. So that's, it can get confusing. So generally speaking, though, I wanted to talk about hierarchy here with the folders. So I'm going to go to folder, and when you're actually on all up here in assets, you're going to be in the master folder, which is going to show everything. And any images, which would be like portraits, assets, maps, anything like that, then go in your images folder. And it just makes sure you organize them so you can find it. Make sure the file names are named properly, and you have some sort of good way to identify your files. The ones that come with Fantasy Grounds or that are purchased on the store are stored in the vault. So you have a vault folder, and any modules that you have, the official ones or store-bought ones that are in the stores, and even half of the Fantasy Grounds Forge are going to be encrypted in a DAT file, so you can't do anything with those. Those are basically baked in. So those are where those assets are stored. So when you buy your own assets, you have more flexibility what you can do with them, but you have to import them, manage them, scale them, all that stuff yourself. When you have the ones that are built for Fantasy Grounds, they're optimized, file sized. Sometimes they already have line of sight on them, so you have all that. So that's more a convenience, right? So, but you have less flexibility. So you have to decide, like, what's worth to you, So I think that one, just having this one big major add-on here that I put in myself, so that went into images, and this is the Game Tile Warehouse token asset folder, and then it has all these things. I think that'll keep me busy for a while on top of the Fantasy Grounds stuff, because I have the art subscription too. So I don't think I need any more assets. And as you can see, I struggle to use the few I do have. So, and then all of these folders in images, like this aqueduct thing, I don't know what this is, but it's probably from a campaign. Yeah, so this is from the Amazing map series, and this is the maps that come with that. So some of these are built into Fantasy Grounds, and then some of them are third party, but they're still encoded where you can't do anything with it. So you can write on it, you can do whatever you want. But one thing I think that a lot of us didn't realize with the recent changes is down here at the bottom, you can actually export. So if I wanted to export this file, I can do that. So if I wanted to go, let's see, go to, I'm just going to recenter the map. If I wanted to export it, there's the export image, and I can export this as WebP or whatever format you want. Give it a name. So I'll say Tavern. I'll just say starter, because it's not really finished. And then this is going to export to this particular campaign. So you can change the directory at this point if you need to, or if you only want it for this particular game, then you export it to this folder. Now you can get to it from other campaigns, but you got to dig into the interface. If you want it to be more universal and to be easier to navigate through, then you go back to Fantasy Grounds, go to Images, and make your own subfolder here. So what I might do is make a new folder, and we'll call this, let's call it made, or say Fantasy Grounds underscore made assets. And then this way I know every time I make my own thing, I'll just start exporting it to this folder, and that way I can always find it. So I'll go ahead and hit save. And then let's take a look and see if I can bring that in. So you got to go to assets, and whenever you change or add anything, you got to go down here at the bottom and refresh. And it should make a campaign folder but I didn't make it in the campaign, so it won't. So if I go to data, here's my Fantasy Grounds made assets, and then here's this is the actual image that I used. Or I can drag this over. Yep. So these this thing here that has the lines on it, I got this turned in as a bug. Let me see if I'll turn this stuff off. So on this here, the lines don't line up. When you export this with the grid on, for some reason the lines are messed up. So I got that turned in as a bug. So if you're going to export images, make sure you turn off the visibility of the grid before you export. You can see this is all jacked up. So this is a caution. This is a bug. They know it. They're going to look at it, try to fix it. So if you're going to render anything out of Fantasy Grounds, just make sure you don't have the grid turned on. Half the time you don't want it on anyways. So, all right. So managing your files is kind of like the main thing here. So if you missed out on a lot of this, I went through and re-optimized some of the images I use all the time. And then I also went through and converted them from PNG and JPEG into WebP files. And then I went through and took all of the folders on the back end of Fantasy Grounds, like my modules folder, the images, tokens, portraits, campaigns, cleaned all that out. There's hardly anything in there. And then what I do is once you're done with that, if you're in your campaign or you're in Fantasy Grounds in one of your sessions, you want to refresh, or in this case, since I did a big purge, I'd probably restart Fantasy Grounds altogether and then load it back up. And I'm going to see if it makes a difference for me now when I go ahead and start it. So I'm opening up Fantasy Grounds. Yeah, that's a little faster already. And now let me go to, this campaign isn't very big, but I'm going to load the 5e basic tutorial here that comes, or this tutorial campaign that the Fantasy Grounds made for new users. And I'll be able to tell, because this has a few assets in it, I'll be able to tell if it did anything or not. It doesn't usually make that big of a difference in this load, maybe a couple milliseconds or whatever, but it doesn't have to index as much crap. And you're also working with less, so there's a lot of liberation there when it comes to keeping track of what you have and what you don't have. And I'd rather, in this case, I think less is more in many cases, because the more crap you add, the more difficult it gets to figure out what you have. So take it from me, I just did a big purge. So that wasn't too bad. Load time was decent. I didn't notice a lot there, but what I did notice is when I started Fantasy Grounds, from scratch, where I didn't have it open, it didn't take as long. Like this part here would take a little long, like a little bit more hesitation. The other thing I noticed is if I go back to my tutorial campaign, when I was searching through the assets, I didn't get a big pause like I would normally get. So that's another thing, is that indexing kicks ass on your performance, because it has to go through gigabytes of information. But when you have everything kind of, organized and you have less of it, it doesn't take quite as long, I notice, or you don't get that pause as much when you have less assets. So that's another good thing. So that takes some of the indexing problems out, or the caching, or whatever it does, because it has to build whenever you bring up an asset pack, so I'm going to go to assets, and then, oh, another thing that was improved is the last folder you were in, it saves that. And you can actually save, I think you can drag this down, your session here, you can drag it to the hotkeys if you need to save whatever. But in this case, so for here, when I was searching for Fantasy Grounds assets, there's a little bit of hesitation, but when I was doing it before, that thing was hanging for like 10 seconds or something like that, or 15 seconds, because it had to go through a big, huge catalog of crap that I added. So when you don't have as much stuff in there, it's not going to be as bad. Same thing with this modules. So now when I go to modules and go to activation, I still have some stuff in here which comes from the Fantasy Grounds Forge and from the modules I purchased, but I don't have, I had 100 and some odd, like almost 300 pages of different, or maybe it was 200, but whatever that number was, just paging through this modules thing was a chore. And it took longer to search for things, and and I get to this point where I just got too much stuff, I don't use it. I just get to the point where I forget what I have, and now I can kind of see what I've purchased, and when I don't have it mixed in with a gazillion modules from the DM's Guild. So there's that. So that's really helpful if you're going to do a change or you're getting ready for a new campaign or something. Take the hour or two, and I shared that with you. It didn't take me that long, a couple hours. Went through and just cleaned up, just got rid of a bunch of crap, and it really helps you when you in the long run. And it does help the performance a tiny bit. Not a big performance boost, but when it comes to searching for content, yeah, it's definitely noticeable. It's a lot snappier. Let me try the module. So let me see. I'll do dungeon because I'm pretty sure there's a lot. Yeah, that's way snappier. So when I did that before, it would hesitate a few more seconds. So that's one reason to purge out some of the third-party content that you're not using, is just for that reason, just to get rid of that hang up that it has to go through all that content. And when it loads, it's indexing all that stuff. And whenever you have, like when you do assets, and you're going through and, when you open up these folders, like this GTW assets that I have, and you go open up, let's say, this flower arrangements, it's got to make a thumbnail for every single one of these. And that's what really kills it, because it's actually generating preview images of each item. So when you've got a gazillion things in there, that really slows it down. So it's nicer when you have subfolders instead of a big, huge, whopping folder with a gazillion things in it. So if you can, go through and make subfolders, so that way when you click on it, you'll know where the stuff is, but then it's also doesn't hesitate as bad. Because if I had all these assets from every single folder in one, that kills it kills the performance quite a bit. So anyways, I think that's enough preaching and yammering, but I just wanted to share with you. Yeah, I hear you, because that's what I did. I just had way too much crap. And I'll tell you what, I'm kind of embarrassed, to be honest, because I have way too much stuff, never use it. So, start being a little bit more organized if you can, and take and purge all your stuff out, or most of it. Keep the campaign folders you're running, obviously, and any art assets that you've imported, you'll have to keep those around, but probably 90% of what you have can go away. I got rid of the modules. The last thing I'm going to do is go through the extensions, because I want to disable them from the Fantasy Grounds Forge first. And then anything left, I'll look at that and decide if I want to keep them or not. But other than that, I don't need a lot. I got one big asset pack, and I already have the Fantasy Grounds art subscription. Plus, I have a gazillion map packs and assets that I purchased through the Fantasy Grounds store. I don't think I'll need any more than that. I have a lifetime worth of stuff. Same thing with modules. All that crap on the DM's Guild, 90% of it's garbage now. It's either going to be outdated, or it needs to be updated for the new Fantasy Grounds standards, or it's not even going to matter anymore. So a lot of it is for 5e, so I'm not even going to worry about that crap. I'm just going to start over, because a lot of that is centered around the older rules, and if you're going to use the 2024 rules, I don't think you're going to need half of that stuff, to be honest. I mean, the adventures probably be all right, but anything character facing, all that stuff, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to have to make exceptions and try to figure out how to convert it to the new standards and all that. I don't even want to deal with that. So I just purged everything out. When Tuesday comes out, I'm going to start looking at the rule set and start doing character creation. So that's going to be my next project, is character creation and just building like maybe one of each character type. Not every single class or subclass, but I'll do 2 spellcasters and 2 martial, and maybe with different races and not just humans. So that way you kind of get an idea, or species is what they call it. I'll do that next. So you're going to look forward to that sometime next week. I don't know when I'm going to start it, but I don't know if I want to do it on day 1, because every time I do that, it blows up in my face. Like something crashes, or you got a console error, or whatever. So I want to play with it a little bit, at least a couple hours before I do any kind of show. And kind of sucks though when you don't have the foresight or the experience, and then it blows